Hello, podcast listeners. First up, thank you so much for listening to and supporting the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. We love doing it and we love getting the amazing comments in from all of you. Just a quick reminder that the Your Success book is out now on amazon.co.uk and amazon.com. It's currently available in both paperback and Kindle, and the audiobook will be coming out in 2019. Head to tiny.cc/yourbook to check it out. That's tiny.cc/yourbook to check it out. Now, on with the podcast.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
Welcome to Your Success Podcast. I'm Angelos.
And I'm Mo.
And today we are talking about the pros and cons of starting your own business. So most people like the idea of wanting to start their own business and having a sense of the control of their own destiny and future. But what truly separates the people that want it and those who actually achieve it? If you're thinking of starting your own business, stay tuned as we discuss some of the common mistakes that people make and how you can avoid making them, as well as the advantages of having your own business over working for someone else.
We're fortunate today to have I'll start again. We're fortunate today to have Peter Hill with us, director at Mark Holt & Co. and author of Pricing for Profit. So thank you for joining us, Peter.
Good morning. Yeah.
Peter has decades worth of experience helping to turn around businesses into profitable enterprises.
So Peter, let's kick off. Why do people choose to start a business in the first place?
That was quite an interesting question. So when I was preparing for this, I sat down and looked at my client list and said, what do I think their motivation was? I think there's a category I'm going to ignore, which is because it was my dad's business, and therefore they've taken it over and inherited it, because in my mind that's not starting a business. Often that is the wrong choice for them, but I'm ignoring family inherited businesses and looking at just those people who've gone, I'm giving up my job, or I'm making this conscious choice to do that. And when I looked at that, for me, lots of reasons. Everyone has their unique reason, but I tried to boil it down to three broad categories. The first is a lifestyle choice. They love going to the pub and they go, God, it'd be great to own a pub. So they inherit some money or get a redundancy payout and they go, I'm buying a pub. Or they're mad about mountain biking, so they go, right, I'm going to set up a mountain bike shop. And if essentially what they're doing is starting a business about something with which they have passion. You know, they want to become a business person because actually that's what they love. You probably read Michael Gerber's E-Myth book, where he talks about the various things, but the entrepreneurial seizure. People go into business for the wrong reasons. So I think there's a big chunk of small businesses where they've made a lifestyle choice and it's effectively a hobby that's got out of control. Okay. The second, and probably from my experience, because we don't tend to have many of those very small micro businesses, so my experience is probably the biggest group are what I will call technicians. The lawyer is a lawyer and therefore he has to run a legal practice to run that business. A plumber is a plumber, so he becomes a businessman because his business is doing plumbing. So they're not really business people as such. All they're doing is taking their core technical skill and becoming business people because that's what they do. And the problem is, being a good builder or being a good lawyer or being a good chef does not mean you're good at running a business. And a lot of people will make that mistake, and we'll talk about that mistake in a bit more detail later. And then the final category, so you've got lifestyle, technical people, technicians, and the third category, which a friend of mine corrected me on the other day, I said there's a third category where you've got entrepreneurial flair. It doesn't really matter what the business is, you just have this instinct for, I'm going to do my own thing. He said, but I'm not entrepreneurial, and he said, I'm very good at running a business, and I actually think I could take him out of his business and put it into most businesses, and I think he would manage them very well. So he said, that's more business skill. And therefore, some people might be listening and say, but I'm not an entrepreneur. I haven't got flair. I haven't got creativity. I'm not a Richard Branson. But actually, they might have that instinct of just knowing how to run a business well. So call it entrepreneurial flair, call it business skill. People who know, I could do that better.
I guess if you look at all of the businesses in the world, most of them aren't the big sort of, Richard Branson style businesses, that's like the very, very small percentage. So actually most of them are what, like, just
I think there's a large number of small businesses who are doing it for fun. We'll talk about whether it is fun in a minute. A large number who, I do this, therefore I need a business to do that. And a much smaller number who go, do you know what, I've got this passion, this enthusiasm, or this skill set where I think I can run the business better than my boss or better than the guy around the corner. And you can call them entrepreneurial or you can call them business people, it doesn't really matter. But they have an instinct or a skill for running a business, and the nature of that business doesn't really matter. Does that make sense?
Do you think the saying is true where they say, do what you love and the money will come?
No. We'll talk about lifestyle businesses as we get into detail.
Okay.
I think I say to my kids all the time, find a job you love and you never work a day in your life. I do think life is easier if you're doing something you are passionate about. But in the context of starting a business, that is very rarely the case. But we'll come back to that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Cool.
So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of starting your own business.
Yeah.
So what are some of the pros of starting your own business?
Well, the question you posed me is should you start your own business? And my answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll talk about why. What I've tried to do again is I've tried to link it to those three categories. So if you have a passion for something and you're thinking of setting up a lifestyle business, absolutely fine. If you are passionate about it and that's what you want to do with your life, because life is short and you never know what's coming, absolutely go ahead and set up that business. As long as you accept that you'll work a lot more hours than you think you will for a lot less money than you expected. Because that's the reality for 99% of small businesses. Very few lifestyle businesses are financially successful in the longer term. In fact, quite the opposite. Most of them go bust and run out of money. So should you go into a lifestyle business? By all means, if that's your passion, as long as you understand that is not going to make you rich in most cases. Make sense?
Yep.
The problem I see of lifestyle businesses is they tend to do that when there is a trigger point that allows them to. They've inherited some money, they've won a lottery ticket, they've got a big redundancy payout, and they think, great, I can do that. And 3 years later, all the money has gone and the business doesn't survive. And you think, okay, that was your pension fund, that was your nest egg, that was your future, and you've just blown it for 3 years of fun. That's what you want to do, but in most cases, that's a mistake. One of the programs we run, we talk to people in big groups and we say, why did you start in business? Just make a list of things. Oh, I want freedom over my destiny. I want to work less hours. I want more money. I want to be, in control day to day. I hate, responding to my boss and all the rest of it. And they'll list out any number of reasons, very similar, most of them. And then you go, how's it going now? Well, I'm a slave to my customers. I'm not making any money. I'm working 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And very, very few are achieving any of the aims that they set out to when they set up that lifestyle business. In quite a lot of cases, we've got many clients where their top 5 employees earn more money than they do. And that's a failure in my mind. So lifestyle businesses, okay, as long as you accept the realities of a lifestyle business.
Do you think that on the lifestyle business that actually you end up hating what you originally loved because it becomes work rather than your passion? Or
there are other consequences that, running a mountain bike shop may be your passion, it's not your wife's passion. Mm-hmm. And when all the money's gone, she's a bit hacked off about that. There are other consequences to business failure, which again, we'll get to.
Yeah. She could say to him, on your bike.
She could. Joke number 1, yeah. So lifestyle
is a dad now, so he's allowed to do dad jokes.
Yes. I've got a few up my sleeve myself. So lifestyle business is fine as long as you understand it. Technicians, so people who are good at something, there's nothing wrong with that. The vast majority of business is, I'm a good plumber and I don't want to work for somebody else. Well, set up your own plumbing business then. It's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that, provided those people understand that being a good plumber or lawyer or builder doesn't mean you can run that business. So recruit people who have the skills you don't have, outsource to people who have those skills, build a network of people around you, good lawyers, accountants, advisors, so that you are left to do as much of the bit you are very good at and other people are keeping the wheels on everywhere else. And that's, I would say, the biggest mistake most people make is they set up their business because that's what they're good at doing. and feel they have to do all those other things themselves, and it's an admission of failure. I saw some of the news yesterday, they were talking about imposter syndrome in kids, I'm getting away with this every day and someone's going to catch me out. No, everyone's getting away with it every day. That's the fact of life. That's not a problem, provided you have an HR person because you're rubbish at HR, and you have a salesman because you're rubbish at selling, and keeping your core set of skills applied to what you're good at, and building a business with other people to fill out in the blanks, absolutely fine. Most small businesses don't. They want to do it all themselves, and then they are limited by their poor skills. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
And then finally, if you are one of those rare breed of instinctively entrepreneurial or business-like, that slight redefinition, then yes, you probably should start a business, because having a job is going to just crucify you. It'll destroy you, because instinctively you don't like working for other people. That's part of your motivation to do something else is, I want to be in charge. Doesn't really matter what they do in most cases, because if they have that flair or that business skill set, they probably could apply that in a multitude of situations. And the key is, what's the one that gets them going? What's the one that gets them on the plan?
You talk about flair a lot,
Yep.
Peter. Do you think being an entrepreneur is a natural thing, they're born with it, or do you think you learn it maybe consciously or subconsciously as you grow up?
No, I think in my experience, there are people who become more capable. The more they're in business, the more they pick up, the more they learn. They absorb that skill and that information, and they get better and better and better at it. But there are definitely people who, when I talk to them, they get it. They don't even know why they get it sometimes. Sometimes they have a little bit of self-doubt because it's obvious to them. How is this not obvious to everyone else? I don't understand. Is it just me? Yeah, it is just you. You're the odd one out because you get it and they don't. So do I think that's an innate skill within certain people? Absolutely, yes. I see that I see it in both directions. Those who think they have it that don't, and those who have it but don't realise it. So yeah, I definitely think that's in your DNA. It's a character trait. It's a skill set. You can get better at it. You can read more books. You can practice more skills, and you can become better at it. But there's probably a point where somebody who's working at it, learning skills, and somebody who's just got it, they'll never really catch them up because there's a limitation to their skill set. They're applying other people's knowledge and experience in the best way the book tells them how to do it. These people just get it. I may have said before, I went to a board meeting where there were 20-odd people there, and one of the guys comes out and he was fuming, and he said, it drives me nuts in those meetings. I said, what's the problem? He said, I can't understand, this is obvious stuff. And I said, if that meeting was in French, would you be surprised if they did not understand? Well, no, it depends if they speak French. They don't speak that language. And some do and some don't. Some learn it, but, somebody who's learn French from a tape recorder or whatever it might be. No, that's old-fashioned. Digital, online. Somebody who's learned it that way will never be as good at speaking French as somebody who's got passion for it.
Learning it from someone that's not a native speaker. So if they've learned it from their parent who's not a natural born, and then it all
or a French teacher at school. There's a limitation to how you can build your knowledge from people who are sharing it with you. If you've got that instinctive flair, and some do, definitely. We have a number of clients where I could transport, and we've tried several times to transport them out of their business and put them in another business because I know they could work it out. They don't need to be a good lawyer to run a good legal practice. So in those three categories, lifestyle, should you or shouldn't you, by all means, but understand the limitations. Technician, yes, but build people around you to supplement your shortcomings. And if you're an entrepreneur or a business person, get on with it, because it'll just drive you nuts if you don't.
I think,
the sad fact is, Peter, that most businesses fail in the first year or so. What can be done to avoid this happening to you if you are considering starting up your own business?
Well, it was interesting when I saw your question, because I thought, do they? And I've heard the statistic, 80% of businesses fail within 3 years. So I went to the Office of National Statistics and I looked up all the data on business failures, and actually over 90% survive the first year. And the reason they survive the first year is because they're running on adrenaline, they're not taking any money out, they've got this pot of cash they started with that hasn't run out yet, and they're living off fresh air. The passion is carrying them through, the excitement, the adrenaline gets them through. and therefore they just survive 12 months because they can. They're not doing anything well, they're not getting it right, and eventually when the money dries up, then it all starts to unravel. So actually, statistically, no, you're okay for a year. And that's the point about the lifestyle businesses. Yeah, if you've got 50 grand to start a business, you'll be here in a year's time. Yeah. In 2 years' time, you'll struggle and your 50 grand's gone. That's the problem for most people. I think the startup is, the challenge for a lot of startups is their USP, their selling message is we're better and cheaper. That's not sustainable in the long term. You can't be better and cheaper than the competition that's out there because your costs are your costs. You can be better, and most businesses don't. They start by being cheaper. Oh, look, that guy's charging, $2.90 for a coffee. We'll charge $2.75 for a coffee. We'll have loads of customers. Yeah, but he's been doing it 20 years and he knows you can't make money at $2.75.
And also, as you grow and your overheads get bigger and you stop doing it yourself, you are price competitive when you start, but when you get bigger and you have staff, you can't. And you VAT register and all these other things, and you have premises.
Yes. And the other thing that we see a lot in businesses is somebody may have passion and enthusiasm to start something small, and they recruit somebody to help them, and that's okay. They recruit somebody else to help them, and that's okay. There is a point you get to where you're no longer doing what you do, you're managing 10 other people, and that's not a skill set they have. And all of a sudden they are unable to get the passion and knowledge that was in their head across to other people. And that dilution of objective, of enthusiasm, of skill, of knowledge, whatever you call it, the bigger you get, that dilution of all those things means it doesn't work. So what you've got to do to get to that next level is recruit better people, learn the skills at training them, or get people in to do that. And most people don't. They just run harder. And they run harder and harder and harder until the money dries up. That's what kills them off. So going back to your point about statistics, most businesses don't fail in that time frame. What you've really got to do is make sure that if the business is going to survive beyond that 12 months, that you work out what the right thing to do is, and then you put systems and procedures in place. So that happens whether you turn up or not. You've got to be building. We have this expression, which is you have to build as it runs itself. If you have to be there to run that business, it's fundamentally flawed. It will not survive beyond you not being there. It might for a week, it might for a month, but it won't for longer than that. So you have to put systems and training and all those things in place. So you say, that's the way I want it done, and you make sure it's done that way. And whether you turn up or not, it's done that way. It's about discipline, structure, control. And the thing is, with most enthusiastic lifestyle businesses, that's not what they're good at. That's not what they like. That's not what they want to do. Even entrepreneurs don't like doing that, but they understand the purpose of it and they get other people doing it very quickly. The other thing in terms of your risk of business failure, why should you go into business? Well, you can survive a year. That's easy. You can survive 2 or 3 years if you get it right. That same set of statistics I looked at said that your risk of failure in year 15 is almost exactly the same as your risk of failure in year 5. It does not change because the world around you is changing, the scale of your business might be changing, competitors are coming and going. There's a whole raft of factors that are attacking your business from the outside, and getting bigger and being around longer has no real impact on the stability and the security of your business.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. I was staggered by that. I assumed if you've been around 15 years, you're probably okay. That's not what the statistics say. Because what's changed in the last 15 years, if you're a business selling this kind of tech 15 years ago, nobody buys it anymore. If you're a business that was providing a service in this manner and you haven't adapted to social media or online sales, you won't survive. The pace of change around you requires you to keep reinventing yourself all the time. So the risk of failure for those who don't reinvent themselves is staggering.
But it's not just for small businesses either. It's for some of the biggest companies, IBM, Microsoft. You look at IBM in the 80s, it was all about the mainframes and things like that. And now look at them, it's all about service. You look at Microsoft, it's all about the desktop in the 90s, and servers and things like that. Now it's all about the cloud service and getting everyone on a subscription-based model. So everything is changing constantly, and you have to be able to adapt. Now, Peter, just very quickly, in previous podcasts, you've mentioned the danger of being undercapitalized. And
Yes.
that's one of the key factors of why businesses go down. So when you're doing your calculations, you work out how much you need to survive for the first year or so. What's your advice for businesses when it comes to working out how much capital is actually required?
It's a difficult one because it's different for every business. The reality is, whatever you think it is, it's probably more. But it does come down to how successful you are. Most people who run out of money, they run out of money because the business they have created and are running is unprofitable. And therefore they're eating into reserves or increasing their debt. I have conversations every week from somebody saying, I just need to borrow money to clear this VAT bill. And they can. There's people out there who lend against it, and you go, but why can't you pay your VAT bill?
Yeah, then what? Yeah.
What's changed?
Yeah.
I can get you through the next quarter until the next VAT bill arrives, but if nothing's changed, all I've done is delay that problem. And one of the difficulties we have is when you talk about undercapitalisation, it's quite easy to get money these days. It's quite easy to borrow money. They'll lend it against your house, they'll lend it against your debts, they'll lend it against your stock, they'll lend it against anything because money's cheap and people with money want to lend it out. Got to lend it out. They're not making enough money on it. It's too easy to borrow money to subsidise underperformance. And eventually they go, I'm not lending you any more, and that underperformance that could have been hidden for years hits the brick wall. So your question about capitalisation is a difficult one because it's different for every business. But I would say you probably ought to say, I've got to have an amount of money that gets me started through 12 months. After that, if I'm not self-sufficient, then I've failed. And therefore that starting point is, I've got to buy a bit of kitchen equipment, or I've got to put the first load of stock on the shelves or whatever. That should be a relatively measurable amount of money. So to open my shop or my legal practice or my builder's business, whatever, I need a van, I need this. You should be able to calculate with a reasonable degree of accuracy to get from A to B is going to cost me 20 grand, 50 grand, whatever. After that, you shouldn't need any more. It should be self-financing or fundable based on its performance. So if your business is doing great, somebody will lend you money based on your debtor book, and invoice discounting as finance was a long ago a sort of, lending of last resort, bad news. It's not. For growing businesses, it's absolutely the right thing. And therefore, you should be able to self-finance your growth. You shouldn't need further capital to do that. Now, again, that's different. If you're in a building business, it's different because there's huge amounts of cash required to buy property, renovate property, and then you've got to wait till you sell it to get your cash back. If you're in a trading business, it should be easy because your stock churns every month or every week. So I can't really give you a number. I think the principle is you need to work out what it's going to take you to get through perhaps your first 12 months, maybe 2 years, but that's a fixed amount of money to do what you're planning to do. If after that it's not self-sufficient, something's gone wrong. And that's, again, one of the problems I see of lifestyle businesses is they throw another 50 grand at it and they remortgage their house and they haven't fixed anything. They just keep throwing money at the problem. And eventually they run out of money to throw at the problem, and the problem's still there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So we've talked a lot about businesses and businesses that fail and how should you start. But let's talk a bit about actually getting started. How do you choose a sector to operate in, and how do you work out your demand for a product service?
Okay, so 2 questions. Let's deal with the first part. If you're a lifestyle business, well, that's an easy choice. You're choosing the sector which you're passionate about. That's easy. Technicians, if you're a lawyer, you choose that sector because that's your skill. If you're a builder, you choose building. So that's relatively easy. The only category where we're really asking the question of what should I do is this entrepreneur or this business person who has flair or skill, and it doesn't really matter what the sector is as to where they apply it. In most cases, they tend to pick a sector that they have some enthusiasm about or they have some knowledge of. So maybe that budding entrepreneur is currently working in a business that does this. Right, that's where I'll start my experience because I've got some knowledge, I might pinch a few customers, I can get some traction quickly. So it doesn't really matter where they pick, but they tend to pick businesses that they've got some connection with because that sort of makes sense. So in terms of where should you start, If you're a lifestyle or a technical business, that choice is made for you. If you're an entrepreneur or a business person who says, it doesn't really matter what I do, you probably should start with something you know, because that does give you a little bit of a head start. And what a lot of those people tend to do is they'll start a business that's in building, and then they go, why am I paying all those suppliers this much money? I'll set up a business that does building supplies. And why am I doing that? I'm going to set up a van hire business because I'm spending, they'll just find other things. And if they're really good at it and they like it, they'll be generating money and other opportunities will come to them. So most entrepreneurs tend to start with what they've got some enthusiasm about, some knowledge of, and then other opportunities will come to them once they get going. And if they are truly entrepreneurial, they'll pick the good ones, ignore the bad ones, and it will grow organically wherever it grows. So I think sectors tend to choose you more than the other way around. In terms of establishing demand, well, that's quite difficult. But the reality is, for every business I've ever met, there is enough demand out there for what you want to do. Because the marketplace, if you're a lawyer, is enormous. There's 100 legal practices in Plymouth. If you want to start a legal practice, plenty of work. The question is, why would I pick you instead of the other 99? If you want to go into property development and create student lets, there's plenty of demand. There currently is more supply than there is demand, but there's plenty of demand, and therefore the issue is, well, why would they choose me instead of the other ones? Am I better location, better quality, better value for money, whatever that might be? So I don't think it's necessary to actually say, before I start this business, do I predict what my turnover could be and can I do this? There's stacks of market out there. Unless you've truly invented something brand new that no one's buying at the moment, which nobody does, there is plenty of demand, and the question you should be asking is, why would they pick me instead of somebody else? And if you get that proposition right, why am I better, faster, better value for money, innovative, better customer service? What is it that's going to make some of those customers, a small fraction of some of those customers, migrate to your business and stick with your business? That's not about demand, that's about what is it you do and how do you do it. Does that make sense?
I like that, yeah. It's an interesting way to look at it. I've never thought of it like, actually, yeah, there's always enough demand. It's just why are you better and why would they choose you over...
What's your USP?
USP, yeah.
I mean, one of the things I would say to any business, rather than the question of what's my demand out there, can I get enough turnover, is who is out there doing what I do and what do they do well and badly. And you can find out and talk to their customers and, I tend to use him, but they're rubbish at this. Right, okay, I can do that. Or you do your own market research. You walk into a restaurant and you look at all the things they do that annoy you and go, I won't do that when I set up my restaurant. None of this is rocket science. For the entrepreneur or the business person, you see it. It's almost like when you watch some of these superhero programs and they see stuff that nobody else sees. It's like you'll like this because you like your Superman stuff, don't you? But it's like a special power. I'm not saying I have it, but we did a lot of training on customer service and stuff many years ago. And for me, it was like a watershed. Previous to that, I wouldn't have noticed. And then I walk into a shop and I go, it does annoy me when that shop assistant's talking about last night's telly and I'm trying to give them money. And it does annoy me when somebody comes along and says, is everything all right with your meal? And they're walking away before you've answered, because somebody said, after 3 minutes, go and ask, is everything all right with your meal? But not told them what to do if there is actually, now you mention it or anything. They just ask a question and leave.
Like box ticking rather than actually
It is, absolutely. Yeah. So rather than that sort of assessment of demand, it's really an assessment of the competition. What are they doing well or badly that I've got to be better at or avoid making those mistakes? What's going to persuade the marketplace to go, these guys look like they know what they're doing. Let's buy from them instead. And whether that you call it your USP or whether you call it your service plan or whatever it is, if you find out what that is, there's plenty of demand. There's no shortage of customers out there who want to give you their money. Especially at the moment, it's a relatively buoyant economy. Let's not get into the dreaded B word, but
give it a week.
Yeah, it's a relatively buoyant economy compared to others that I've been in. In recessionary times, that doesn't change that principle. It just becomes far more important because customers have far more power in recession to demand more for less. But that doesn't change that equation of how am I better than my competition. It just makes it harder to achieve.
I suppose, you're recession-proof in your business if you're the best, right? You might have to not drop your prices, but you're always going to be above the competition. So in a recession, if it contracts, you're still at the top.
You are. My advice to any business is always be the best. Being the cheapest is a tough place to be. Being second best and good value for money is okay. And being the best will give you enough customers and make you enough money, and you'll be fine. And stop trying to be all things to all people. Just focus on those people. In a tough marketplace, some of your customers love what you do and they think it's great value for money, but they don't have any money, so they're forced down the value curve, and you're tempted to match them. That may be okay temporarily. You're a long-serving customer, I'll give you a special discount for a while, and that's okay, and you've got to adapt to the economy, but you still want to be at the top slice of that value curve because that's where the money is. Unless you are Asda, Tesco's or Amazon, unless you're a absolutely enormous player where all those economies of scale are okay, so you can be half the price of the nearest competitor because you can beat the crap out of them on cost control every day of the week. But that's not many businesses. For the vast majority of people that we deal with and you deal with, they have no cost advantage in the long term. Their advantage must be quality, service, expertise, experience, all those things. It can't be a price-led proposition because it doesn't work. Does that make sense?
So, Peter, probably the most important question that we're going to ask you today, is it worth it? Surely having something comfortable like a 9-to-5 job with a regular paid pension, you know where you stand every day with your boss, is better than all the risk and all the stress and all the hassle of having your own business.
It's been a bit doom and gloom up to now. It's like businesses fail as much in year 15 as they do in year 5, which is a great stat. But is it actually worth it after all that? Yeah.
No. Honestly, no. In most cases, no. If you get it right, absolutely. If you get it right and you run a good business and you do it well and you're enjoying it, you're probably making money out of it. If you're good at it and you're enjoying it, you'll be making some money. You might be building some income, some wealth. Yes, they are absolutely the minority. They are exceptions to the norm. So most people go into business believe, and they have to believe that when they go into business, they're going to be the exceptions, but they're not. Exceptions are the exceptions. Most people are the norm, and the norm is you work too hard for too little money. Is it worth it? No. Financially. So what we see with a lot of those smaller businesses is they look at business people and they go, I want a slice of that. I want the nice car. I want the big house. I want the freedom to do whatever I want to do. I want to knock off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because I'm the boss. That's what I want. I want a bit of that. They don't see the 80-hour weeks, the sleepless nights, the house mortgaged up to the eyeballs, the wife who never sees you, the kids who don't know what your name is. They don't see any of that stuff. So they feel running a business is either easier or the rewards are greater than they really are for most people. We had a discussion on one of the previous podcasts about success and, how do you get the big house and the big car? I know lots of people who've got a big house and a big car, but it's on borrowed money. That's not success. And even if they are rich, the wife run away, the kids hate them, they got no friends. That's not success. So I think the challenge for a lot of people is to really think about why you're going to a business. If your objective is financial, then I think it may be the wrong decision. You may be better in a job with a pension, with steady income, and go and indulge your passion outside of that. Go and do whatever it is you want to do as a weekend hobby or an evening hobby or, on holidays. So I don't want to be too pessimistic because, the people who are listening to your podcast are enthusiastic, they're energetic, they're thinking about starting a business, they've started a business. They want someone who's going to go, yeah, it's great, carry on. Yeah. But for the majority of people, no, it's not. It's hard work. It destroys marriages. It ruins wealth. It is just not as easy as people think it is. And part of that is they see from the outside other people being successful and making money. Nobody really goes looking for the guy who's had his house repossessed. We don't want to see any of that stuff, but it happens, and it happens way too often. So is it worth it? For a lifestyle business, if it's your passion and your enthusiasm and you understand you're going to work long hours for less money, you still might want to do it. And that might be absolutely perfect for you. If that's what gets you out of bed in the morning, there is more to life than money. By all means do that. But recognise the challenges that come with that. If you're a technician and you're good at what you do, go and do it for somebody else. Because running a business will be harder, more time consuming, challenge your relationships and probably make you less money.
And you can indulge your passion more if you're an employee, a technical employee doing as an employee.
Yes. Now, those who've got that instinctive flair, that will drive them nuts, because working for other people that they don't think are as good as they feel they could be, you probably got to have a go at it. But you've got to have a go at it with limits.
So I've got two questions.
Yeah.
So is there a case that actually, if you've got to scratch an itch, and if you feel like that in a job, you've got to go out and do it. So because obviously life's short, you've got to go and see if you can make it work, and if you can't, then obviously you've got to protect your downside. But do you think there's some? I think it's really good that we're really honest about the fact that it doesn't work, and there are a lot of failures. But sometimes it's just that you can't get through the day without thinking about what if, things like that.
Yeah, I think what's good in the current world marketplace is you can sometimes indulge those things in your own time. Depends what your business is, but you can do a lot of stuff online. You can do a lot of, let's set up a micro business, let's do it over the weekends. And I see a lot of people who go, this works, let's do it. Let's give up the job, let's go and do this stuff. I think you could start a business, you can have a stab at it and see if it works, but you've got to do that with a finite level of risk.
Yeah.
And if, again, I have lots of people where they inherit a bit of money or they do something, they go, right, I'm going to start that business. I've always wanted to start. That's great. That's your capital. And when it's gone, it's gone. But that's not what they do. They lose that and they remortgage their house and they borrow a bit on personal guarantees. And then they're in. And, I've got no choice but to carry on. I've got to borrow more on personal guarantees.
So as a country and an economy, how do we address that and improve that? Is it the entrepreneurial education at school, or doing something, the government schemes where actually we get mentorship from people like yourself that have been through it, and to sort of make it more, not obviously you always got to have the norm and the exceptions, but make them a bit more.
I think I did a thing for the Chamber of Commerce years ago where they said, we like to know what we could do better as a chamber, how do we do the right things? And I said, my struggle with any Chamber of Commerce, or many organisations like it, if the only requirement for entry is to write the cheque, that's not much of a club, is it? If you want to be in a Chamber of Commerce, there ought to be something that says, are you the right calibre of business? Now, I don't care what that entry requirement is, but I see lots of people go into business who don't even know what a set of accounts looks like. There should be a course on reading a set of accounts. I've got some clients over the years who wouldn't know the difference between a profit and loss account and a balance sheet. Now, to many of the people watching this, I go, really? Yeah, really. And I've got people. I'll give you a fun example, but you'll go, no, that can't be right. Somebody who says, okay, I buy stuff for 50 pence, and I mark it up by 100%, so I'm now selling it for £1. Yeah. And then they go, so I can afford to discount it by 60% because I've marked it up by 100%. I'm still making 40%. And you go, no. Mark up and margin, there are different calculations. If you buy it for 50p and you mark it up by 100%, that's £1, yeah. So if you discount it by 60 pence, it's now 40p, that's less than you paid for it. Yeah. Well, how can it be? Because 100% is 60p. Yeah. And you think, you're running a business? And that level of, I'm choosing my words carefully, but incompetence, they should not be running a business. Or you'll ask them a question about, what would you do about that recruit who's struggling? Just sack them, you can't do that, just waste of space. Yeah, but you can't just sack them. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah, you're allowed to. No, you're not. That level of incompetence of making the day-to-day business decisions about pricing and recruitment and all those things, there should be some level of minimum standard that you have to go through to be able to run a business.
Almost like an exam for being a director.
Yeah, it's like a driving test. A driving test does not make you a good driver. It makes you safe to be on the roads. There should be something that says, we're not expecting you to be Richard Branson. This is not a test I want to be difficult. This is a test that weeds out those people who are just getting in the way of all the other good people who've got something useful to deliver. They're clogging up that system. So I do think going back to your question about what should there should be some education. I think running a business is hard, and too many people go into business with no understanding of what that means. They've never read a book, they've never been on a course, and they just go, yeah, let's run a business. And surprisingly, they fail. So I think that's one of the challenges that we've got. Overall, would I play around with it too much? I don't know if I would, because you want people to be able to go into business, because some of them do survive and employ people and create wealth. Our economy is heavily reliant on family-owned private businesses, not massive organisations. I don't know what those stats are, but there's a huge number of owner-managed businesses in this country, and we don't want it to be too difficult for them to start a business and get on with things. But that minimum entry requirement of can you add up, that's a reasonably important issue for a business. That's a bit, I think I would say there should be some test.
And you don't take HR advice from your mate down the pub?
No. No.
Importantly. Yeah.
So, go back to your fundamental question, would I advise people to do it? A lifestyle business, if you understand what you're getting into.
Yeah.
If you have this dreamy image of what it's going to look like, and I'll do that for 10 years and then I'll sell it and retire to a beach somewhere. No, you won't. That's not the way it's going to work. But if that's what you want, because that's your passion, your enthusiasm, and you don't care, and lots of people are like that, crack on. Yeah. Absolutely fine. If you're a technician, okay, I understand it might be frustrating being a good lawyer working in a practice that you don't think is very good. Well, by all means, set up your own and surround yourself with all the people that have the skills you don't have. If you've got that itch to set up a business, crack on, but again, limit your risk. Be very clear, because most people start down a path and it gets a bit slippery and they have no way back, and they just keep sliding until there is nothing left. And when I say nothing left, if you've mortgaged your house to the eyeballs and you've got personal guarantees on everything and your business fails, I don't know what the stats are, but your spouse disappears with the money, your kids, for whatever reason, because you've spent 3 years working 90-hour weeks to keep the thing afloat, and then it fails, by the time you go, it's all gone, I'll go back to the family. Family's moved on. They're doing other stuff because you weren't there.
But on the upside, there's
an upside.
There is a small upside. So what I was going to say is the people that get it right, the people that take the right advice, the people that educate themselves, the people that listen to your Success podcast, read your book, read our book, and for the people that get it right, it can be a good life. Right?
Yes. I mean, don't get me wrong. We have 500 clients here. They're probably better than average businesses because we don't take on micro businesses. That's not our marketplace. We have lots and lots of clients who enjoy what they do, make very good money out of it, employ people, create value, all the things that you would want from that business. There are people getting it right all the time. But, and this was another one of those statistics that I looked up, in 2017, 357,000 businesses failed. That's a huge number of lives damaged by that business failure, because some of those businesses employ people who are then unemployed, who's, again, there's lots of statistics on the average person has less than 6 weeks of safety net from losing their job to can't pay the mortgage. So it's not just the business owner who's lost his house, other people have that risk as well. And that doesn't even include non-VAT micro businesses. That's not window cleaners and one-man band plumbers. These are businesses that employ people that pay VAT. 357,000 of those failed in a single year. Of those businesses that were started in 2012, over the 5 years, the survival rate was 43%. So less than half of the businesses who started in 2012 were still going 5 years later. And you can almost guarantee those businesses will have lost money. That's why they've stopped doing it. So they will have had bigger mortgages on their house or lost their house. They would have got debt. They would have got other things. So they are scary statistics. And that's the bit that I don't want to scare the living daylights out of people. But you are unusual if you succeed. That's the bit that people need to understand.
I think it's a really important message, because there's plenty of people out there that are saying, go for it and, do what you love and the money will follow and all of this.
Yeah, you've got to balance it. I mean, that's the good thing about listening to you, Peter, is that we have a lot of positive, inspirational people and I count
Oh, and
myself.
I'm not in that category.
And I count, let's not dig.
Keep digging.
Yeah, but realism is probably the most important thing that they need to consider. It's all very well having your passion, your enthusiasm, you feel really buoyed up after listening to someone who can give you lots of enthusiasm, but the reality is the reality, and that's why it's really important to listen to someone like yourself.
Yeah, and I think if I was trying to put all that into context, I don't want anyone who's got that passion and enthusiasm to go, oh, he said don't do it, so I'll go back and have a job I hate for 40 years. Try it. You know, if you think you've got what it takes, if you think you've got a magic ingredient, try it. But try it with a safety net. Yeah. Try it with limits. Try it with control. One of the things I would say, I can't remember if it came out in previous podcasts, is, and I'm not testing you, so don't worry about it, but do you understand the difference between running as a sole trader, running as a partnership, running as a limited liability partnership, running as a company with a holding company that owns the good stuff whilst you trade in the risk? There are lots of variations of how you set your business up that will make a world of difference between what happens when you fail, if you fail. Now, nobody goes into business expecting to fail, and that's sort of what I'm saying is go into business and go, well, if it does go horribly wrong, if it all goes tits up, what's the worst thing? And if the worst thing is, I'll lose my house, I'll lose my wife, and I'll lose my kids, then don't go into business. If the worst thing is, I lose my redundancy payout and I've blown it, but my house is safe and my relationships I've got to manage, by all means, it's your money. Spend it on whatever you want to spend it on. But most people don't understand that difference between business structures. They don't understand, I borrowed 50 grand from the bank and it's really cheap. But have you got a personal guarantee on it? Or what's a personal guarantee? Well, it means if the business fails, they come after you. Well, it's a business debt, but you've signed a personal guarantee. And I see it, again, not very often, but when a business fails, you go through the list and there's a personal guarantee on the photocopier lease. There's a personal guarantee on the car finance, lots of stuff that they don't understand at the point they sign those documents. And therefore, that reality check, which is, okay, it's great, I've got this, plenty of demand, my costs will be this, I can make this much money, I believe that will work, I'm going to do that, that and that, hopefully that will work. Okay, but if it doesn't, what does failure look like? And if failure looks like Armageddon, then you think again. Because no one really goes into business expecting Armageddon. If that's what's going to be the outcome, then adjust your plans. Either do it slower or do it in a controlled way. Before you open that restaurant, get a burger van and see if you really like serving burgers at 3 a.m. to drunk people. All that kind of stuff. Learn your skills part-time, in the evenings, in the weekends. Read a few books. Read a few, if you read Richard Branson's books, you go, I haven't got a clue what he's talking about. It makes no sense to me at all. Or any other book for that matter, think again. If you read it and go, yeah, I get that, that's what I want to do, maybe that's right for you. But most people go into business completely unprepared for what that could throw at them.
And also surround yourself with positive people, not positive people, but people that are experienced and can lead you along the way and mentor you, like we talk about on the podcast and in the book as well. So
that's one of the things I would say that is valuable to our clients. That's why they come to us, is we're not just sending them their accounts once a year. They want someone they can pick up the phone to and go, I had one the other day, he said, I've got this employee and I'm thinking of sacking him. And all he wanted was somebody to say, I agree, sack him. Yeah, but the lawyer says, I know the lawyer says that. What's the cost of not sacking them versus the cost of sacking them and getting it wrong? Well, even if I end up in a tribunal, it's only going to cost me this much, but they're costing me 50 grand a year by being stupid. Sack them, But that's what they need to be surrounded by, people who've got opinions, people, and that could be friends rather than professionals, but surround yourself with people who are encouraging, supporting, have the skill sets you don't have, etc., etc. And your risk of failure reduces enormously because most people are making it up as they go along. That's the reality. And if you're making it up as you go along, you only know what you know. If you can pick the brains who've been there, done that, seen it. I mean, I've seen hundreds of businesses fail, and I can probably give you good reasons why they have failed. And if a client comes along and says, I'm starting this business, well, pick my brains, because I know why you're likely to fail. Most people don't do that. They buy their cheapest accountant they can find because they haven't got any money. And they go to the cheapest lawyer they can find because they haven't got any money, and they don't surround themselves with that calibre of person that's going to help them through.
And so there's been some amazing points so far. I think there's loads of value for our
pretty miserable.
It's good balance, I think. So are there any other points that you want to make on starting up your own business and the pros and cons and how to get started?
I think I've sort of covered it. The harsh reality of running a business is it is much harder than you think it is. Yeah. Stress levels are higher, financial pressures are higher, the hours you work are longer, the money you make is probably less. You need to really think through before you leap in with both feet. Yeah. Is it the right thing for you to do? And if it is, by all means, have a go at it and do the right things. I personally don't think it's that hard to run a good business because the fundamentals are quite simple, really. Is what you do what the marketplace wants? Well, go and find out. You don't have to set the business up to find that out. You can go and do your research. You can ask people. You can see what your competition is up to. So there's an awful lot you can do before you leap in with both feet. My experience is people don't do that. They leap in with both feet. And that's why they fail. They've gone in without any real understanding of what it looks like. And part of the struggle is they've done that because they have this image of what success looks like, whether it's fast cars or big houses or, come and go as I please, lovely holidays. It's a bit like my kids were saying to me the other day about this social media pressure is, so-and-so's always on holiday and they're doing this and they're doing that. No, they're not. You only see when they're on holiday. They don't post the 50 weeks a year where they're at work miserable as sin. They post the 2 weeks of the year when they're on a beach in Barbados or whatever. And people make their judgments about what being in business looks like based on this external presentation of what they think success looks like, and that's not what it's like. So it's all about, like most things in life, it's about think carefully, plan properly, and make an informed decision. And if you do that, great. We have hundreds of clients who've got great lifestyles, making money, enjoying what they do, and they've made the right decision. And interestingly, some of those have done that more than once. They've had a business and failed, and had a business and failed, and eventually they found the right thing because they are that instinctive entrepreneur, and they just go, I'll do another one then. That doesn't faze them, that doesn't frighten them. But there are too many others where we see the consequences of failure as being, catastrophic, absolutely catastrophic.
Peter, I'd like to thank you for your time today.
My pleasure.
It's more of a seminar than a podcast, so I think our listeners are going to get some massive value from this. It may not be what they want to hear, but that is the reality. That is the reality of starting a business, is that it's not always as what we perceive it to be. The nice holidays, fast cars and lots of wealth. It is a lot of hard work and there's probably a lot of risk involved. So it's great to hear from someone like yourself who has seen that through over many decades with many different businesses. What's the best way for listeners to contact you?
Well, as always, they can contact me through Mark Holt & Co. So they can go onto the website. Phone numbers are on there. They can, get hold of me through emails from there. Any way they want to contact me, by all means, do that. So Mark Holt & Co. If you look at the website, all that detail is there.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you to those of you listening to this special podcast with our guest Peter Hill. Please let us know what you think about his thoughts, starting your own business. Maybe you want to share some of the lessons you've learned on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, or email us on hello@yoursuccesspodcast.com.
And don't forget to check out the Your Success book and Peter's book, Pricing for a Profit.
Yes, indeed.
Both, Your Success book, packed full of tangible, actionable insight gleaned from all of the amazing successful people we've interviewed on the podcast, like Peter, that we've had on a few times. Head to tiny.cc/your book to check it out, and Amazon for Pricing for Profit.
It's on Amazon, in Kindle, paperback, hardback, and soon to be in Portuguese, I understand. Yes.
There are Portuguese listeners. See what?
With the book.
See the book. We've probably got some Portuguese listeners. We should, shout out to our Portuguese listeners. We'll let you know. We've got some listeners in Portuguese.
How do you say short out in Portuguese?
Short out.
Shout out, you. I'm shorted out.
So I've been Mo.
And I've been Angelos.
Go on.
And thank you for listening to Your Success Podcast, and see you again on the next exciting episode.
Great to see you so well rehearsed.
It's only our 100th episode. We've done.
Thank you again,
Thanks again, Peter.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
You have been listening to Your Success Podcast. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.yoursuccesspodcast.com.